Welcome to our second of three hangouts tonight. We have 2A coaches with us now. Dane Fueling, he's getting down and dirty. He turned his hat on backwards, so he's ready for some heat from these two coaches. We have Coach Clint Guard from Rochester. He's joining us, and also Coach Dan Luther from South Bend St. Joe. They are here to talk about their seasons, talk about what's going on in their part of the world. They actually just saw each other earlier this week at Rochester, so they're making friends with each other. So, and they'll probably see each other quite often throughout the postseason. So, 2A, we're gonna get right down to the seeds. I'm gonna share my screen again once I remember how to do that. Okay. Um, they aren't pretty cut and dry. The first two are fairly cut and dry. Yorktown, no one's going to probably argue that one at number one. Belmont, number two. They both kind of solidified themselves as probably the top two teams, at least as of right now. 3 through 8, 3 through 7 area is absolutely hairy. Number 3 only beat number 7 seed by 1 point in a duel earlier in the season, so that tells you how close these teams are. Mount Vernon, Posey, number 3. Number 4, Southmont. Number 5, Rochester. Number 6, Lebanon. Lebanon gave Yorktown a real good match a couple weeks ago. Evansville Memorial's number 7, and number 8 is Franklin County. The unseeded teams are nothing that I mean, they're both 4 solid teams. I know we've seen Columbia City, who's, if they're healthy, they're going to be be able to win 5 or 6 matches, if not 7 or 8 against some of the seeded teams. Leo, they have a pretty good team minus a heavyweight. South Bend St. Joe, Coach Luther is going to probably talk about them. I know they have a lot of seniors and return a lot of solid kids. And Gibson Southern, who has some hammers too from down south. Dane, I know the biggest heat. You're probably going to take a lot of heat over the seeding here. 3 through 8 is absolutely. I mean, what did you guys do to kind of separate the teams here?
Well, first thing to differentiate between 2A and 1A, the unseeded teams in 2A are going to be much more competitive, I think, than the unseeded teams in 1A, and that's probably a product of just the size of the schools. But that made our job that much tougher. As far as going through the seeds, it was pretty easy. Yorktown was the number 1. I don't think anybody's going to be anywhere close to them throughout the tournament, which in the end made our job a little bit easier. And in the end, it doesn't matter what the draw is. I think you're going to end up with the same outcome. Yorktown's going to be number 1. But Belmont had 2 wins over 2 teams who are going to end up being seeded in the 3A tournament. And that's just something that the other teams didn't have. And that made for a consensus number 2. As we got into 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, it was those 5 teams for sure that were all up for consideration for the 3 and the 4 spot. As we started looking at criteria, it really came down to some common opponents and some head-to-heads. And if you look, like you said, Mount Vernon had a victory over Evansville Memorial. That was 33-32, but Mount Vernon also forfeited 2 weights in that match. So that made a little bit of a difference. In the end, that common victory put Mount Vernon at number 3, and then as we went from there, we ended up with some commons where Southmont was number 4 because of a victory over Lebanon, and the big one, Lebanon beat Zionsville, and Zionsville beat Evansville Memorial. And in the end, that really set everything into place. We had a lot of discussion about where Rochester fit in, as their schedule didn't really lend itself to any commons. But as we went through, we ran some comparisons. We looked at lineups. We ran projections with Rochester and Lebanon, with Rochester and Southmont. And we felt like they slotted pretty well into the number 5 spot. That left us with Lebanon having the common over Evansville Memorial, and then Evansville Memorial obviously was the number 7. And then after we looked at all the other 5 teams remaining, We went with Franklin County. They had a couple of nice wins, a really nice duel, even though they lost to New Palestine, who is in the 3A tournament, and a close loss to Beech Grove. There were some other commons. Columbia City had beaten New Haven, and New Haven beat Leo, which knocked Leo out. South Bend St. Joe had some losses at the beginning of the year that led themselves to probably not getting a seed, but it was tight. We spent more time on 2A by far than we did on the 3A and the 1A. We went back and forth on 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Sort of a fluid process, and you couldn't just use one criteria to run everybody through because you didn't have it. So that's what we ended up with.
Okay, so now where everyone filled in, Gibson Southern goes in with Yorktown and Franklin County, South Bend St. Joe and Rochester and Southmont. So might get some trash talking here between the two coaches. They're going to see each other early on Saturday.
Round 1.
Yes, round 1. You guys are going to see each other. So we'll get the gloves off in a few minutes. Leo's going to go in with Belmont and Evansville Memorial. Leo, like I said, they have a solid team. If they match up well with you, they can make things interesting. Same with Columbia City, Lebanon, and Mount Vernon. I think that's going to be a pretty tough pool. Obviously at the 2A level, injuries and sickness and all that stuff is going to play a huge part in how teams perform and obviously matchups. And if teams are able to bump around kids, they have some other kids that they can throw in the lineup and bump one of their weaker kids out. So this is kind of how the bracket's going to look. If you're the 1-8 champion, will wrestle the 4-5 champion, and 3-6 versus 2 and 7. So looks like it's going to be a pretty competitive tournament past Yorktown. So Coach Luther, we'll start with you. How's the season been going? I know, like Dane said, you guys took some early losses, but you guys have wrestled a little bit better lately. Tell us a little bit how your season's going and everything.
Well, this is honestly, this has been a banner year for us. We're 16-6 right now. That's more wins than St. Joe's ever had in a single season. The previous record was 14, I believe, in 1978. So the year I was born, actually. This year's been going really well. We've got, I'd say we have about 2 to 3 losses that I think that we shouldn't have, of dual meets we should not have lost. Our other losses, I think, are to pretty solid teams, pretty solid programs. We lost to Harrison from West Lafayette, Riley. Both those teams are solid top to bottom and having really good years. And we've also been dealing with some injuries. We've had some guys out for meets and some important guys. 2-time regional qualifiers, only wrestled 5 matches this year. But everybody's got injuries. We're not going to make excuses. We're happy. And we like where we are. We like the pool. We like that we get to wrestle a friendly foe in Rochester, so somebody we're at least familiar with. That's nice, because some of these other teams, I don't know a whole lot about. So
yeah, that's definitely
nice. It'll be fun.
I think all those pools are actually pretty competitive, even with the unseeded teams. That they bring something to the table if they don't match up. I mean, if you guys match up well with a team, it could make for an interesting day and could make Dane turn his hat on backwards with the seeds. So, Coach Gard, you guys are undefeated right now, as far as I know. You guys also won your invite on earlier this week, or actually last week, I guess. Tell us how the season's going and kind of what you guys are looking forward to this week. With you guys have both Al Smith and the team state going on.
Yeah, it's been a little weird to prepare this week for that, just because you don't. You want your good kids to go up and compete at the Al Smith and be ready to go, but at the same time you're trying to get them ready for team state. So that's not a problem we've had in the past. So that's been interesting, especially coming off John McKee last week, and then you're dealing with Christmas and trying to get breaks in for the kids and giving them days off and all that good stuff. So it's certainly been an interesting time. But we feel like we got a pretty good team. I like our draw. I think Southmont's a pretty solid team, and obviously we saw St. Joe last Tuesday, and I know they've got some studs in their lineup, and they were missing some guys, and at this point in time everybody is. It's I'm not sure. We just had our 6-pounder, our number 1 6-pounder, who's a pretty good little freshman, disciplinary reasons, so he's gone for the season. And we've got somebody to plug in there, but his grandma just passed away, so I don't know how that's going to go. I'm hoping we'll have a 6-pounder come team state time. We should, but obviously with family and things like that, you just never know what's going to happen. So, but we should be, we should have everybody that we have had all season long. We've been very, very fortunate to not have any injuries or anything of that nature. So we've got obviously 9 seniors in the lineup, and 7 or 8 of those guys are pretty darn good. So, it's just one of those, at a small school like ours, and I'm sure Dan can say the same thing at St. Joe, and most other 2A coaches can too, that, you go every 3 or 4 or 5 years and you get a team that you kind of build, and, this is one for us where it's been a long time coming, and, another 3 or 4 years from now, hopefully we'll have another one, but it's not, we're not a Yorktown or a Belmont where you can kind of keep reloading almost every year and have a dominant or a competitive team year in and year out. So we're going to take advantage of this week and hopefully see some big stuff for our team.
Sounds good. Coach Luther, are you guys doing anything special for this week for your event, getting shirts or anything kind of special you guys are doing that to highlight being able to go? I mean, obviously you said this is a pretty good year for you guys. Anything special you guys are doing?
Yeah, the kids designed and had singlets made, so we'll be breaking out new singlets for the team state.
Cool. You guys do anything at Rochester? I think I saw you guys had some shirts and stuff made.
Yeah, we did a singlet, and I've kind of been breaking them out as the season goes. And I hate doing this because I'm not a fan of giving rewards for doing what you're supposed to do, but as they've accomplished some of the goals that we've kind of put on our plate this year, we broke out singlets. We designed some new singlets for team state, and we broke those out earlier in the season. Then we've done some fight shorts for the kids, and we've done some T-shirts, and just trying to advertise it as much as we can and talk about it within the community. And we're fortunate enough in Rochester, we have our own TV station, and we have our own radio station. So, most small towns like ours don't have those types of things. So it's been really nice because we're able to get all that information out to the community and let people know kind of what's going on and when things are going to happen. And with break, we haven't really been able to do a whole lot with, any kind of pep rally or anything like that. But, I know the kids are excited, and we've got I feel like a strong group of probably parents and kids that are going to follow the team down. And, I think it'll be a fun day for the guys, and, I think they got a chance to do pretty well. So.
Sounds good. What kind of things are you looking forward to? Rochester's had like you said, they kind of go up and down. And what kind of things are you guys looking forward to, not only the rest of this year, past team state, but also, in the years to come? What kind of things are going on in the program that you're excited about?
Well, we got a good little kids program going right now. We've got about we just finished up right before Christmas and had just about 80 kids that we finished up with, and then we'll have a group of, I think, about 26 or 27 kids that will continue on competitively January and February. We just that's kind of where we're building it and trying to get our middle school program back up to where it was. We've got some good young middle school kids that don't have a whole lot of experience, but they're pretty good little athletes. So I know that in the next 2 or 3 years we're going to struggle, but I'm hoping by the time we're talking about some of these little kids now and juniors and seniors that we'll kind of be back around to what we're doing now. So I feel pretty good about our feeder programs. It's just going to take a little while to build those kids because they're here, and I'm sure it's the same way a lot of 2A schools. You share your athletes, and a lot of those kids are football players, and they run track or they play baseball, and so they're just not kids that just wrestle. And so you kind of they develop a little bit slower. They're good athletes, and I think they'll be great little wrestlers, but they're just going to take a little while longer to develop. And these guys that I've got this year, I think one of the reasons why we're having a lot of success, even though some of them have been multi-sport athletes, their focus has always been on wrestling. So, their learning curve hasn't been quite as steep as what some others have. So, it's kind of nice when you have that, but there again, as much as we share athletes, when you don't, then you're going to have a couple years where you're down. So, I think in another probably 3 or 4 years we'll be back around, and I think it'll go well for us. But it's going to be a couple years yet before we get another team like this.
Sounds good. Do you see that the team states kind of help build a little bit of excitement for those younger kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has. We lost, to be honest with you, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think this year we lost some kids because they knew they weren't going to have a varsity spot, and I know you guys have been through this in your programs. If they don't think they can have that varsity spot and be on that team state roster, then some of them I know for a fact are thinking, well, why do I want to do this? And it's not like a Penn or a Evansville, Mater Dei, or some of these big schools where kids are. You don't have to share as many athletes, and you get all these kids out, at a Warren Central or a Penn where you've got 80 kids out in your program, and they kind of know what's coming if they work hard, and kids behind them pushing those varsity guys, and hey, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to lose your spot pretty easily. So I wish that we could get to that point. I just don't know if we ever will. With our small community and different, the whole sharing athletes, that kind of thing, I think just kills you in that department. So, I think the kids who have stuck it out, and I know for these seniors, it's been a big deal for them. This is their final chance at something, and even though we're going to end up wrestling Yorktown, which I told the kids the other day, I hope we do. I want us to wrestle the best competition so that they're ready for the end of the season. So I know that they're excited about the chance to at least wrestle for a state championship. Those things don't come around. I mean, in the history of Rochester, we've had 3 state championship teams. So we got a chance to be the 4th, and I know those seniors are looking forward to it. And there's some juniors that have really stuck with it and done a good job. And we've got a good group of juniors and seniors that have really kind of put this, especially last year when we knew it was kind of a goal that we could make it. They've done a great job of working towards this and being able to compete. So, I think they're really looking forward to it, and I think some of the young kids are going to be able to go and watch are looking forward to it as well. But unfortunately, I think it kind of goes both ways. I think you can scare some kids off with the fact that they can't be in the lineup, and hey, if I can't be a guy wrestling for a team state title, then I don't want to be JV, and we had probably 4 or 5 juniors this year that really would have helped us next year just decide, hey, I don't want to do it. So now the nice thing about that is we've got some freshmen that can move up next year and hopefully help us out. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's definitely something we were talking about before with Coach Luther. So Coach Luther, what kind of things have you seen, like some excitement within the school and type, throughout the program? I know you guys you're in a fun spot. You get you're right next door to IHSWCA, Penn, even the Elkhart schools. You have play. Definitely a lot of good wrestling schools, and you guys are probably the smallest school around there. And what kind of things have you guys seen that hopefully you're looking on the up and up for St. Joe?
Well, like Coach Gard said, this is gives you a boost of momentum, gives you some respect throughout the school. Like I told you before, we don't get a ton of kids out. Our roster is about 25. That's about as big as it gets. Maybe we'll get into the 30s here and there. But this will help us get some of our athletes that are already in the school out. Some football players, they see you going to team state, they see you doing well. It's going to draw those guys in. And as much as I love kids that have been wrestling for 7, 8 years, if you give me a couple good athletes, I believe that our coaching staff can make them into solid wrestlers. So, and then with the grade school, the grade school kids see it, and it's going to give them a boost, give them some belief in the sport, and hopefully, kick them over to St. Joe as opposed to some of the other schools in our area. And I love wrestling in South Bend and in the NIC. I love getting to wrestle Penn. Because it gets you ready. for late January and February for the individual state tournament, and seeing those guys and wrestling those guys, it's only going to make you better. Like Coach Guard said, you want to see Yorktown, you want to see where your kids stand, and get an idea for what you have to work on. So we like wrestling the best.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I know I was at a 2A school for 10 years. I know exactly everything you guys are talking about. Kids are coming out and keeping them out and keeping them interested. And if they don't find that varsity spot, sometimes they find other activities to participate in, whether they're positive or negative. So with that, I want to thank you guys for joining us, and we're going to get ready for our third and final show, hopefully. Thank you guys for coming, and good luck Saturday, and we'll see you guys. See you guys on Saturday. And good luck at the Al Smith, Coach Guard.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Joe.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for all you guys do.
Yep.